Hello, my name is Tiffany Kwok, and I have the privilege of introducing you to Compass Community, a church plant in Markham, Ontario that started in September 2024. Who is Compass Community? They are a church plant under the office of the Evangelical Free Church of Canada. They describe themselves as an outreach ministry focusing on reaching younger immigrant families and second-generation youth and young adults, with the main goal to provide a supportive and encouraging space where people can grow closer to God. The focus on younger immigrant families and second-generation youth and young adults here refer primarily to Chinese immigrant families, as well as second and third generation Canadian-born Chinese youth and young adults who may have left the ethnic Chinese church. The mission of Compass Community is to cultivate an environment where individuals, families, and generations can follow their unique compass while remaining faithful in seeking and living out the purpose of God. They have a commitment to intergenerational relationships that is rooted in the belief that together, as a diverse and united family of faith, we can more effectively fulfill God's desire for Christians to guide people worldwide into a relationship with God. The importance of intergenerational relationships is worth highlighting. For those unfamiliar with the Chinese Canadian Christian community and context, ethnic Chinese churches are typically established by first-generation Chinese immigrants, with worship services conducted in Chinese. English-speaking congregations were generally established later on to support and retain the children of the first-generation Chinese immigrants within the ethnic Chinese church. And so the Chinese English-speaking congregation generally operates under the auspices of the Chinese-speaking leadership and congregation. Due to language differences, the Chinese and English-speaking congregations and their ministries are operated separately from one another. Despite these operational separations, those in the Chinese-speaking congregation generally hold the majority of the leadership and governance roles in the church overall. The primacy and authority of the Chinese-speaking congregation over the English-speaking congregation can also be observed in the instances of joint worship, where both congregations worship together on Sundays. The use of Chinese and Chinese song selections demonstrates this, and so the distinction of the congregation based on language can hinder the development of intergenerational relationships within the church. To address this issue of the separation between the younger English-speaking and the older Chinese-speaking church attendees, Compass Community seeks to provide an integrated intergenerational community where multiple generations can worship and grow together side by side as one church body. How does Compass Community operate? It is run by a solo church planter with over 25 years of pastoral and ministry experience. On Sundays, they average 15 people in attendance each week. In partnership with a local organization, Compass Community also offers a program on Saturdays for adults with special needs. Compass Community operates out of a commercial business building in an industrial area with an entrance on the side of the building. Worship is primarily conducted in English with Chinese interspersed throughout. The worship style is interactive and engaging. There is also a significant use of multimedia and closed captioning to bridge the language gap between the Chinese-speaking and the English-speaking. The interview was an incredible experience, and I learned a lot in the conversation with the church planter. The first highlight for me is how the church planter has embraced the church planting experience. Even with all of its ups and downs and surprises, he's embraced the experience with joy and peace. And while the church planter has pastored and ministered for over 25 years in ethnic Chinese churches, this is their first time planting a church. There is no core group, no mother church, no SWAT team, no experienced church planters to support the solo church planter. And despite the demands and challenges of solo church planting, they have approached church planting with faith and grace. This is evidence of God's call and the church planter's character to persevere and continue this work with integrity. The interview also helped me to develop a deeper understanding of the Chinese Canadian church landscape, with all of its challenges and opportunities through the eyes of the church planter. While I grew up in a Chinese Canadian church, there is much I do not know about the history and the context of Chinese Canadian churches. This interview was incredibly informative and insightful, and I got to understand more about the church culture that I grew up in. The last highlight of the interview was the church planter's repeated comments about the urgency and the importance of redefining the church for today. There is a general sense that in the Chinese Canadian churches, church leadership and even some of its members seem disconnected from the broader Canadian society. The question that was posed by the church planter at this point in our interview was that, how can we as Christians bring God into the world when we are not connected to the world? I think that is a topic that is incredibly relevant and timely in the engagement of this course. I gleaned many lessons from this experience, and I will highlight 3 here. The first, Chinese Canadian Christians do not know about church planting because church planting has not occurred in the last 20 plus years. As part of the church planting work, the solo church planter is seeking a church planting mentor within the Chinese Canadian Christian community. However, because church planting has not occurred in the Chinese community in recent times, there are very limited knowledge and expertise to support church planting, whether within the Chinese community or beyond. And this may be an opportunity to break out of the Chinese cultural mold to do something different and plant a different kind of church that is multicultural as well as multi-generational. The second, survival and maintenance mentality is firm in Chinese Canadian churches. The Chinese culture can sometimes hold an elitist and condescending attitude to the broader Canadian society. And as such, the use of an organized religion and its structures to preserve the Chinese culture lends itself well to a maintenance mentality. And with shrinking attendance and loss of membership in many Chinese Canadian churches, the immediate reaction is to tighten its grip and lean even further into its tradition and historical ways of doing church instead of trying something new. With its conservative culture, Chinese Canadian churches are generally risk averse and prefer the status quo, the tried and true, instead of the new or the experimental. The third, bivocational ministry is less prevalent in Chinese Canadian churches because many enter ministry as a second career or in post-retirement. And so part-time and or unpaid positions are more easily filled by members of the congregation instead of someone in a bivocational ministry role. I believe there's much work to be done to better understand these phenomena in order to find the appropriate solutions that will help redefine and support the development of Chinese Canadian churches and third culture churches in the current Canadian context. For those in the Morecambe area, I encourage you to connect and support Compass Community as you're able. Thank you.